Hello friends, we come to chapter 13 of The Great Divorce. I do not know that I ever saw anything more terrible than the struggle of that dwarf ghost against joy, for he had almost been overcome. Somewhere, incalculable ages ago, there must have been gleams of humour and reason in him. For one moment, while she looked at him in her love and mirth, he saw the absurdity of the tragedian. For one moment, he did not at all misunderstand her laughter. He, too, must once have known that no people find each other more absurd than lovers. But the light that reached him against his will. This was not the meeting he had pictured. He would not accept it. Once more he clutched at his death line, and at once the tragedian spoke. "You dare to laugh at it," it stormed, "to my face, and this is my reward? Very well. It is fortunate that you give yourself no concern about my fate. Otherwise you might be sorry afterwards to think that you have driven me back to hell. What? Do you think I'd stay here now? Thank you. I believe I'm fairly quick at recognizing where I'm not wanted, not needed." That was the exact expression, if I remember rightly. From this time on the dwarf never spoke again, but still the lady addressed it. "Dear, no one sends you back. Here is all joy. Everything bids you stay." But the dwarf was growing smaller even while she spoke. "Yes," said the tragedian, "on terms you might offer to a dog. I happen to have some self-respect left, and I see that my going will make no difference to you. It is nothing to you that I go back to the cold and gloom, the lonely, lonely streets." Don't, Frank," said the lady. "Don't let it talk like that." But the dwarf was now so small that she had dropped onto her knees to speak to it. The tragedian caught her words greedily, as a dog catches a bone. "Ah, you can't bear to hear it!" he shouted with miserable triumph. "That was always the way. You must be sheltered. Grim realities must be kept out of your sight. You who can be happy without me, forgetting me. You don't want even to hear of my sufferings. You say, don't tell you, don't make you unhappy, don't break in on your sheltered, self-centered little heaven. And this is the reward." She stooped still lower to speak to the dwarf, which was now a figure no bigger than a kitten, hanging on the end of the chain with his feet off the ground. "That wasn't why I said don't," she answered. "I meant stop acting. It's no good. He is killing you. Let go of that chain, even now." "Acting!" screamed the tragedian. "What do you mean?" The dwarf was now so small that I could not distinguish him from the chain to which he was clinging. And now for the first time I could not be certain whether the lady was addressing him or the tragedian. "Quick," she said, "there's still time. Stop it at once." "Stop what?" "Using pity, other people's pity, in the wrong way. We have all done it a bit on earth, you know. Pity was meant to be a spur that drives joy to help misery, but it can be used the wrong way round. It can be used for a kind of blackmailing. Those who choose misery can hold joy up to ransom by pity. You see, I know now. Even as a child you did it. Instead of saying you were sorry, you went and sulked in the attic, because you knew that sooner or later one of your sisters would say, 'I can't bear to think of him sitting up there alone crying.' You used their pity to blackmail them, and they gave in the end. And afterwards, when we were married, oh, it doesn't matter, if only you would stop it." "And that," said the tragedian, "that is all you have understood of me after all these years." I don't know what had become of the dwarf ghost by now. Perhaps it was climbing up the chain like an insect. Perhaps it was somehow absorbed into the chain. "No, Frank, not here," said the lady. "Listen to reason. Did you think joy was created to live always under that threat? Always defenseless against those who would rather be miserable than have their self-will crossed? For it was real misery. I know that now. You made yourself really wretched. That you can still do. But you can no longer communicate your wretchedness. Everything becomes more and more itself. Here is joy that cannot be shaken. Our light can swallow up your darkness. But your darkness cannot now infect our light. No, no, no. Come to us. We will not go to you. Can you really have thought that love and joy would always be at the mercy of frowns and sighs? Did you not know they were stronger than their opposites? Love. How dare you use that sacred word, said the tragedian. At the same moment he gathered up the chain which had now for some time been swinging uselessly at his side, and somehow disposed of it. I'm not quite sure, but I think he swallowed it. Then for the first time it became clear that the lady saw and addressed him only. "Where is Frank?" she said. "And who are you, sir? I never knew you. Perhaps you had better leave me, or stay if you would prefer. If it would help you, and if it were possible, I would go down with you into hell, but you cannot bring hell into me." "You do not love me," said the tragedian in a thin bat-like voice, and he was now very difficult to see. "I cannot love a lie," said the lady. "I cannot love the thing which is not. I am in love, and out of it I will not go." There was no answer. The tragedian had vanished. The lady was alone in that woodland place, and a brown bird went hopping past her, bending with its light feet the grasses I could not bend. Presently the lady got up and began to walk away. The other bright spirits came forward to receive her, singing as they came. The happy Trinity is her home, nothing can trouble her joy. She is the bird that evades every net, the wild deer that leaps every pitfall. Like the mother bird to its chickens, or a shield to the armed knight, so is the Lord to her mind in his unchanging lucidity. Bogies will not scare her in the dark, bullets will not frighten her in the day. Falsehoods tricked out as truths assail her in vain. She sees through the lie as if it were glass. The invisible germ will not harm her, nor yet the glittering sunstroke. 1,000 fail to solve the problem, 10,000 choose the wrong turning, but she passes safely through. He details immortal gods to attend her upon every road where she must travel. They take her hand at hard places. She will not stub her toes in the dark. She may walk among lions and rattlesnakes, among dinosaurs and nurseries of lionettes. He fills her brimful with immensity of life. He leads her to see the world's desire. And yet, said I to my teacher, when all the shapes and the singing had passed some distance away into the forest, even now I'm not quite sure. Is it really tolerable that she should be untouched by his misery, even his self-made misery? Would you rather he still had the power of tormenting her? He did it many a day and many a year in their earthly life. Well, no, I suppose I don't want that. What then? I hardly know, sir. What some people say on earth is that the final loss of one soul gives the lie to all the joy of those who are saved. You see, it does not. I feel in a way that it ought to. That sounds very merciful. But see what lurks behind it. What? The demand of the loveless and the self-imprisoned that they should be allowed to blackmail the universe, that till they consent to be happy on their own terms, no one else shall taste joy, that theirs shall be the final power, that hell should be able to veto heaven. I don't know what I want, sir. Son, it must be one way or the other. Either the day must come when joy prevails and all the makers of misery are no longer able to infect it, or else forever and ever the makers of misery can destroy in others the happiness they reject for themselves. I know it has a grand sound to say you'll accept no salvation which leaves even one creature in the dark outside. But watch that sophistry, or you'll make a dog in a manger the tyrant of the universe. But dare one say It's horrible to say that pity must ever die. You must distinguish. The action of pity will live forever, but the passion of pity will not. The passion of pity, the pity we merely suffer, the ache that draws men to concede what should not be conceded and to flatter when they should speak truth, the pity that has cheated many a woman out of her virginity and many a statesman out of his honesty, that will die. It was used as a weapon by bad men against good ones. Their weapon will be broken. And what is the other kind? The action. It's a weapon on the other side. It leaps quicker than light from the highest place to the lowest to bring healing and joy, whatever the cost to itself. It changes darkness into light and evil into good, but it will not, at the cunning tears of hell, impose on good the tyranny of evil. Every disease that submits to a cure shall be cured. But we will not call blue yellow to please those who insist on still having jaundice, nor make a midden of the world's garden for the sake of some who cannot abide the smell of roses. You say it will go down to the lowest, sir. But she didn't go down with him to hell. She didn't even see him off by the bus. Where would you have her go? Why, where we all came from by that bus. The big gulf beyond the edge of the cliff over there. You can't see it from here, but you must know the place I mean. My teacher gave a curious smile. Look, he said, and with the word he went down on his hands and knees. I did the same. How it hurt my knees, and presently saw that he had plucked a blade of grass. Using its thin end as a pointer, he made me see, after I had looked very closely, a crack in the soil so small that I could not have identified it without this aid. I cannot be certain, he said, that this is the crack you came up through, but through a crack no bigger than that you certainly came. But, I gasped with a feeling of bewilderment not unlike terror. I saw an infinite abyss and cliffs towering up, and then this country on top of the cliffs. Aye, but the voyage was mere locomotion. Well, it was not mere locomotion. That bus and all you inside it were increasing in size. Do you mean that hell, all that infinite empty town, is down in some little crack like this? Yes. All hell is smaller than one pebble of your earthly world. But it is smaller than one atom of this world, the real world. Look at yon butterfly. If it swallowed all hell, hell would not be big enough to do it any harm or to have any taste. It seems big enough when you're in it, sir. And yet all loneliness, angers, hatreds, envies, and itchings that it contains, if rolled into one single experience and put into the scale against the least moment of the joy that is felt by the least in heaven, would have no weight that could be registered at all. Bad cannot succeed even in being bad as truly as good is good. If all hell's miseries together entered the consciousness of yon wee yellow bird on the bough there, they would be swallowed up without trace, as if one drop of ink had been dropped into the great ocean, to which your terrestrial Pacific itself is only a molecule. I see, said I at last. She couldn't fit into hell. He nodded. There's not room for her, he said. Hell could not open its mouth wide enough. And she couldn't make herself smaller. Like Alice, you know. Nothing like small enough like that. For a damned soul is nearly nothing. It is shrunk, shut up in itself. Good beats upon the damned incessantly as sound waves beat on the ears of the deaf. But they cannot receive it. Their fists are clenched, their teeth are clenched, their eyes fast shut. First they will not, in the end they cannot open their hands for gifts, or their mouth for food, or their eyes to see. Then no one can ever reach them. Only the greatest of all can make himself small enough to enter hell. For the higher a thing is, the lower it can descend. A man can sympathize with a horse, but a horse cannot sympathize with a rat. Only one has descended into hell. And will he ever do so again? It was not once long ago that he did it. Time does not work that way when once ye have left the earth. All moments that have been or shall be, were or are present in the moment of his descending. There is no spirit in prison to whom he did not preach. And some hear him? Aye. In your own book, sir, said I. You were a universalist. You talked as if all men would be saved. And St. Paul too. Ye can know nothing of the end of all things, or nothing expressible in those terms. It may be as the Lord said to the Lady Julian, that all will be well, and all will be well, and all manner of thing will be well, but it's ill talking of such questions. Because they are too terrible, sir? No. But all answers deceive. If you put the question from within time and are asking about possibilities, the answer is certain. The choice of ways is before you, neither is closed. Any man may choose eternal death. Those who choose it will have it. But if you are trying to leap on into eternity, if you're trying to see the final state of all things as it will be, for so you must speak, when there are no more possibilities left but only the real, then you ask what cannot be answered to mortal ears. Time is the very lens through which you see, small and clear as men through the wrong end of the telescope, something that would otherwise be too big for you to see at all. That thing is freedom, the gift whereby you most resemble your Maker and are yourselves parts of eternal reality. But you cannot see it only through the lens of time. You can see it only through the lens of time, in a little clear picture, through the inverted telescope. It is a picture of moments following one another and yourself in each moment making some choice that might have been otherwise. Neither the temporal succession nor the phantom of what you might have chosen and didn't is itself freedom. They are a lens. The picture is a symbol, but it's truer than any philosophical theorem, or perhaps than any mystic's vision that claims to go behind it. For every attempt to see the shape of eternity except through the lens of time destroys your knowledge of freedom. Witness the doctrine of predestination, which shows, truly enough, that eternal reality is not waiting for a future in which to be real, but at the price of removing freedom, which is the deeper truth of the two. And wouldn't universalism do the same? You cannot know eternal reality by definition. Time itself and all acts and events that fill time are the definition, and it must be lived. The Lord said we were gods. How long could you bear to look without time's lens on the greatness of your own soul and the eternal reality of her choice? And that, friends, is the end of the philosophical chapter 13. And next week we come to the last chapter in the Great Divorce, chapter 14. Have a good week. God bless you.